Welcome to Deep Thought, Supermen Among Us. Yeah, and I know people follow me a long time say, Ron, I'm just obsessed with that Superman thing. You can kind of say that. I've always been interested in the Superman. And not that, guy in the the tights and the cape flying through the air. Which, well, I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone. No, and now if they exist, well, that would be interesting. In fact, on a hypothetical thought, because you know how we flow on here, if they did exist, well, it'd probably be a different history now. Probably be a different history. And honestly, if enough of them existed, they would probably take over. That's another conversation, though. That's another video to think about. But for this one, when I talk about Supermen, I talk about the men who rise above the masses. I talk about the Nietzschean overman, who by their sheer will, they're above the rest. I'm talking about a James Patterson supervillain, for those who read those books of Alex Cross. And actually, those books made me fascinated with it because the protagonist, Alex Cross, he was, that dude could box and, but he was a genius too and really highly intelligent, And also, but then you had the antagonists in there, and they were always, their thought level was always above the rest. So I don't get them like I used to. After a while, the stories started blending together, but it's along those lines, just thinking about the men. And I ain't gonna be politically correct. The men who are on that level as far as what they're doing and the impact that they're having on the world. And like I said, it's not always obvious. They're not flying, but they could be that business genius. They could be, we see plenty of them on the sports field. There's plenty of them just on that physical basis. But what about that genius that created a $1 million empire from scratch? Like literally from scratch. Now, I ain't talking about the guys who created billions, but if you look at their families were, their families were in the top 10% anyway. I'm talking about somebody totally from scratch who created something, totally from scratch. Or someone who's, just their practical intelligence is at a higher level. And when I say practical intelligence, I don't mean scoring high on an IQ test. I mean actually applying that knowledge in everyday situations. Because let me say something about that. That's cool. You got a high score. And sometimes if I'm messing with, I'm being petty and messing with some detractors or something, I'll say, hey, we can take that IQ test. I do that just to mess with them. It's a psychological thing. Trust me on that. But, I'm just like that person that's above. They might have charisma, something, just a bunch of things that take them above the rest. Because the reality out here, most men and women are just a part of the herd. This ain't a bad thing, and this is something that's been seen throughout history. Indeed, in many spiritual systems, including early Christianity, there was always 3 levels of man. And I've talked about that before. The highest, the lowest were the masses. The general public. Some people derivatively call them the herd, but you could just call them the masses. And Confucianism, they would call them the inferior man, the inferior men. And then you had a second level in Christianity. Those were the people, the sheep, the flock. Indeed, some people on a different level call them sheep, but not in a good way. But then you had the second level. Now in early Christianity, it was disciples. I'm just using that as an example, just to show this goes across. I remember seeing something about how they described them in India, and also in the United States with the group that follows Kemetic mysticism theology, the Asar Set Society. They talk about the Sahu. Those are the masses, the inferior man. then the man Ab, who were the superior men under Confucianism, the disciples in early Christianity. And then you had the highest level, the sage. The sage. That's the highest level. And can't say I'm familiar as much personally with the sage. If I meet one, I'll be like, yes. Also, if I met one, I wouldn't tell y'all. And let's just say society would have a problem with someone on that level. Because if you look at the sage level, that's like different. Like, of course, in Christianity, that would be Jesus, or as he was actually called in the early days, Yeshua. You had Moses, Confucius, like different men on just that higher level. For those who follow Kemetic history and everything, in Imhotep. So, that's that highest level. But we still have some. We still have some. You have individuals that they really are on a higher level. Now, one of the things, because I can, Third Eye is saying, well, somebody will start throwing out maybe some YouTube personalities. They probably not, because you have, when you look at the masses, someone who can raise just a little bit above them would seem great or something. In fact, in Kemetic theology, was followed by the Asar Set Society. They would call those people Setians. So it's like, they would seem that, but they still not at that highest level, which is the next level. Not the highest, like I said, in their own thing. A mentor calls them the divine man. But the next level would be the superior man. And you have them among us. And it's not always obvious. They're not necessarily a be on YouTube. Some will, but some may not. It could be, someone who creates a school just to educate young men and women. It could be someone who's an activist. It could be definitely maybe a legitimate spiritual leader. Somebody who, the thing is, once you rise to a certain level, it's no longer about just but looking at the greater good that can be done. And that's a mark of it. They would feel like that they're on a mission. That they're on a mission to make a difference in the world. And because of their high level. But like I said, they're at a high level, not to be confused with someone who is kind of in between the inferior man and the superior man, which, as I said, they would call them Set, Set, and I forgot what the 5% Nation of Islam would call them. I forgot. If someone is a member of that movement, let me know. The 10%ers, they would probably call them. So it's different. Everybody has a general idea about that. But one of the things is always something to think about. It's always something to think. Just think about it on such a level that you do have those who are at another level of being. I mean, in the Rosicrucian system, they talk about that. Just rising to that next level. Shoot, you could even argue that the Masons, they get into that, because one of the things with the Masons is really building men. But whatever the case, they are among us. Now, some are doing major things, some are doing stuff behind the scenes. But since I was a child, that fascinated me, because you always wanted to rise up and know that there are others there. Just hopefully some can provide an example, some may provide leadership. But it's something to think about. Something to shoot for, and something to see. Because one thing, no matter what's going on in the world, you have those who will make a difference. And I'm gonna get into that Thursday. So anyway, I want y'all to think about what I'm saying. Like I always say, I throw stuff out and I give y'all a little clue. Some, for those who understand, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't, none is possible. Let me hit y'all with that real quick. Anyway, that's all I have for now, but think on what I just talked about. Peace and blessings.